As previously, as you all know, the property at 315C Pleasure Isle Drive is due for public auction by the Master Commissioner on September the 5th. It's vacant property, has very little value, has a lot of problems with it. We have a number of alternatives of how to address that, but we began with the idea that that the city would buy the property if nobody bid it in. There are alternatives to that, and I believe Ms. Fetty is prepared to make a presentation on that. But the best alternative is for a third party, somebody else, to purchase the property at the sale. Last week, I talked to the abutting property owner who's been cutting the grass for some period of time, explained the process to him, and he indicated that he would be at the Master Commissioner's sale and he would bid on the property. If that occurs, then that solves our problems. But I cannot count on him doing that. He might show up and bid, he might not show up and bid. So we need to determine which alternative we want to follow. And I'll leave Ms. Fetty make her presentation in regard to that.
I have a question. I thought I read an article in the paper about Transitions being interested in that property.
That's not.
It's different property.
Okay.
It's different property.
All right. That's my question. Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Yep. I misunderstood that too at first.
Okay.
Made it work.
Yeah.
Woohoo, aren't you
How many
so?
acres have you got down there?
Playing Clark.
I think it's about 3/4 of an acre.
Retired.
Okay.
I think Mrs. Fetty has all that information.
Oh, man, let's get to it.
Okay.
I'm sorry, you do it.
That's okay, that's okay. Can I use this? Is this gonna work properly? Okay, so what I love most about our responsibility as council people is learning new things. And this 315C Pleasure Isle gave me the opportunity to learn a lot. And I'd just like to talk a little bit about it. Like Frank was saying, this property has a little issue with ownership. Nobody can figure out who actually owns the property. And there's, on the GIS information, it's listed as Connie Sue Hamilton, but there's a deed, and Mr. Wickman can explain this a little better than I can. There's a deed that deeds it over to her from a different family, the Stams.
That's correct. The GIS is relying on a deed that's recorded in the county clerk's office that conveys property to Ms. Hamilton. They identify it by address as 315C, but the legal description, the meets and bounds description of what's being conveyed is not 315C, it's the adjoining property. In any event, none of the potential owners can be located. We just don't know where they are.
So basically, we have an issue where we don't know who to hold accountable for any issues that come up with this particular property. We can look at the property. So if you are looking at Transitions, that road, you take that road all the way back, and it's a 14,400 square foot lot with no house on it. This gives you a little explanation. There's no structure. Approximately 50% of the lot is in a 500-year floodplain. The other 50% is in a 100-year floodplain, which makes it basically, we can't even give this property away if we were to take it in to the city. Habitat for Humanity is not going to take it. Honk's not going to take it. We can't even give it away. So basically what that means is we'll be maintaining it for the rest of our lives. This shows the floodplain. Here's the property itself. I took a drive down and was able to take a look. Somebody's maintaining, like Mr. Wickman said, it's probably this gentleman right here.
The adjoining property owner, right?
Yeah, I mean, so he's maintaining the grass. It's never gotten a citation for unkept grass. And there's a creek right in the back. So this floods. This is the creek that basically runs into the creek that floods Pioneer Park. So this is not a great piece of land that you're going to be able to build anything on. Delinquencies and citations for the property over the years, delinquent taxes through 2016, which according to Mr. Wickman, it was 16 years behind, probably because we could never figure out who owned it. So $1,206.09. The penalties associated with the delinquent taxes, $241.33. Interest associated, $950.30. And then there are 2 citations, one for 2003 for rubbish outdoor storage for $200, and a 2012 citation for rubbish outdoor storage for $100. When I looked back at the 2016 committee meeting in March when we talked about this, there was some concrete spilling. I didn't see any public works costs for cleaning that up, so I don't know if like maybe the neighbor had done it and they were able to clean it up. I didn't see any public works charges for that, basically.
For the concrete,
Yeah, so,
yeah, talking to the adjoining property owner, he explained what the, if you're on Pleasure Isle Drive and you're looking south towards the creek, the gentleman I talked to owns the property on the right, his name is Mr. Maynard. He was telling me the property owner on the left is accumulating that concrete
okay,
and pushing it over into the side of the property that's being washed away by the creek
okay.
in order to prevent that erosion.
Oh, okay,
He's never been cited for it that I know of. And, but in any event, that's the reason for those concrete slabs being there.
okay. So the citations are probably more the neighbor's issue and putting them on this piece of
Yeah,
property.
those citations, my understanding, again, talking to Mr. Maynard, is that there was a mobile home on the property.
Okay,
It burned, and the rubbish and junk citation was to get rid of that
okay, okay.
problem.
Okay, so total owed to the city by this property owner, $2,697.72. So when we're looking at making a decision on this property, fixed costs associated with the property across all the different options, there's going to be 4 options that I discuss. In the long run, what I'd like, when we're looking at this presentation and looking at the different options, don't just think about it for 315C Pleasure Isle. Think about it for any time we want to do a city-initiated foreclosure, let's do a cost-benefit analysis to make sure that it's going to be beneficial to our city before we go ahead and do it. So when we're looking at the Cowie properties, the cost-benefit analysis, yes, there were costs, but the benefit to the city was greater than the costs necessary. So we did it. Then we look at the Woodward. There's costs associated with that. Now we look at the different options that are available and we're deciding, okay, let's not give away the property, let's try to sell it. So I think before we do any kind of city-initiated foreclosure, let's first take a step back, look at all the different costs that are associated with each of the different options that are available to us so that we're making an educated decision on each property moving forward. I'd also like, when we're doing the cost-benefit analysis, let's make it, when we talked about this particular property in the committee meeting in March 2016, it was just a conversation. There wasn't really consensus across all council. I would suggest let's make it a vote. And when we do a city initiated, let's have a vote among council. And I don't know if we could put that into the procedures, but that would be my opinion. So let's do the cost benefit analysis, understand all the different options that are available, and then take a vote on it, on how to move forward. So when you're looking at this presentation, think of this as an example of how we could do an analysis on any property that we want to do a city-initiated foreclosure on. So when we're looking at fixed costs across all the 4 different options, we have the court costs that are still to be paid. We have $2,000 in court costs. We have the attorney's fees that are still needing to be paid of $5,300. The delinquencies and citations, so those are just not collected, $2,697.72. And then the labor costs of codes enforcement, so the 2 different citations over the past 14 years, those are unknown. So a minimum total fixed cost across all options is $9,997.72. So option number 1, the city doesn't bid. So what happens if the city doesn't bid? So basically we are in the hole, the fixed costs of $997. What happens to the property? If there's no bidders for the property, the foreclosure will not affect the owner, and it'll just remain in the same confused state as it has been, which then all will have been for nothing, basically. So that's not a great option. Option number 2, the city bids up to $7,300 and city maintains the property forever. We have the fixed costs. Then we have the Public Works labor and maintenance costs. These are estimates that I gathered from Mr. Bogart. We're talking about approximately $1,120 per year to take care of this property times the number of years that we own it. So if we own it 30 years, you know, and of course those numbers are going to increase over time, but just for estimated purposes, you know, this could be, you know, a money pit, basically. Option number 3, city bids up to $7,300 and the city subdivides between the neighbors. Again, you have the fixed costs. You also have the Public Works labor and maintenance times the number of years owned, because you're not going to subdivide the land immediately. So you're going to have a period of time where you have to maintain that land. Then you have the PDS subdivision application fee, which is unknown. Civil engineer plat drawing fee is unknown. Attorney's deed creation fee is $150 per deed, which you would split it between the 2 neighbors, and you would need 2 deeds for that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
If they're willing to do it.
Correct, with the assumption that the neighbors are wanting the land and willing to help pay with the costs, basically. Now, if they are willing to help pay, then you're seeing your costs decrease, which would be great, but it's kind of dependent on whether they want it or not. Then option 4, which is the best option, which is the gamble. It's someone else purchasing the property at auction. This is the most cost effective for our city. It is beneficial because we're going to subtract any recovered dollar amount from the purchase from the fixed costs that we see across all the different options. This option saves us the most amount of money, but can we find somebody to purchase the property? And I really hope that that gentleman, Mr. Mader, does come out. But what do we do in the event that he doesn't? And we probably need to have a plan in place, a backup plan. Say Mr. Maynard doesn't show. What's our plan? What are we going to do? Because we don't want to have to keep this property forever. We don't want to have to subdivide it because we're plunking down additional money on this worthless piece of land. So what do? And that's what brings me to, let's do this kind of cost-benefit analysis prior to making any decision. Questions?
If we purchase the property and only one of the neighbors wants it, we wouldn't have to subdivide it, would we? I mean,
No.
Okay, I was kind of built in the subdividing idea, but it sounds like one guy might be interested, and that might be an option to consider as well.
Yeah.
Is your thought of subdividing that we would abandon it? I mean, I'm confused on the subdivision portion.
I'm sorry.
And then deed it to the neighbors.
Is the thought of the subdivision that we would abandon it, and then through the abandonment statute, we would then offer it to the new neighbors, or the idea would be just that we would surplus it and gift it to the 2 neighbors?
Surplus it or sell it.
Okay.
Either way. So I talked to the person on, if you're looking at it, the other one that Mr. Wickman didn't, to the left. And while they seemed interested in that whole subdividing part of this too, I wouldn't put a lot of faith in that and them having the ability to do anything except us donate it. to him, to them. So, just that side. So we did contact the other one too.
How many acres is down there?
.2.
22 acres?
Point
Point
two.
two. It's only 14,400 square feet.
And when that goes to auction, there's gonna be a minimum?
Well, Mr. Wickman,
I didn't hear the
is
question.
there a minimum at auction?
No,
Is there a lien? I mean, doesn't the city have a lien on what's owed? The $1,200 or $1,300?
we do. That's, but we're foreclosing that lien.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's what the
The city initiated
does. It
foreclosure.
Okay.
eliminates
Because
that
of-
lien.
Okay.
You mean if you got to auction, you still got to pay the city taxes?
Yeah, that's what I was asking, but yes, but no, that would be forgiven.
What's that zone for?
You've got all the
He won't have to
information
pay
there.
the
on there.
back taxes, he just has to pay future taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's it zoned?
It's residential. I don't know which actual zone it is.
Residential, she said.
No.
Yeah,
go back.
Residential?
Yes,
yeah.
Jack, if somebody I don't know, if somebody maintains a property for X number of years, and for some reason I want to say 7, can't they claim?
Yes, I was thinking
Yeah,
that very same
can't they
thing.
claim it, so if this
Yeah,
guy's
so the
been,
adverse possession,
yeah,
yeah, so again, that's a hard thing to prove. I've actually went to trial on an adverse possession case. It has to be hostile, meaning that, you know, it has to be open, notorious, you've got to fence it in, you've got to really lay claim to that property. And it's 15 years.
okay.
Wow.
Okay,
and
15,
you
okay.
have to have some
Yeah, there we go.
actual claim to the property. You just, a stranger can't come in and claim adverse possession.
Right.
I thought, I was thinking, I thought on Jacqueline Drive, we had this property that, it was a lot, and the guy was always cutting it and whatever, and somehow I thought got added to his deed or something.
Yeah, but you got to sue for that. So, you know, my understanding, and
Okay.
I'm looking at this the first time on these slides, it sounds like there was a title defect on this property.
Okay,
So I'd be this, I mean, if the neighbor wanted to adverse possess it, he would have to kind of go through a similar type process. He would have to sue the rightful owners or these unknown owners.
Okay.
And then go through a very similar process.
okay, all right.
All right, thank you. You put a lot of work into that, Mrs. Fetty, I appreciate that. That's the last, or actually, we do have one other thing that we would like to discuss.
Wait
I'm
a
sorry.
minute, Mayor, I need a decision.
Oh.
Which of the alternatives, which of the alternatives do we want to follow if that person doesn't show up and bid?
Yeah,
Oh, what do we do?
I don't know what that was. Okay, so, let's have some discussion. What's the preference?
What's our choices? One, two, 4 options.
I think option 3,
Thank you.
to me, it seemed like we would go in almost, you know, option 4 is the best, option 3 is the next best, and option 2 is the next best, and option 1 is just not viable.
Yeah. Yeah,
So option 2, the city purchasing it, option 3, the city purchasing it and subdividing it?
Or giving it to one, or to selling it to one of the owners, yeah.
Purchasing it to surplus it to a
Yeah,
neighbor.
yeah.
Yeah, we need to be rid of it.
What was the housekeeper's appraisal on it? Do you know?
3,000.
3,000?
Well, the PVA appraisal is 3,000. I haven't received the,
Master Commissioner's
Master
appraisal. It'd be
Commissioner's
3.
appraisal.
I'm sure it'd be the same.
it probably will be.
Yeah.
I say leave it be, because we got enough problems. We're not gonna make that much money on it.
So, I mean, procedurally, to move further or faster through it, wouldn't we want to at least bid in 2,000 so that the right of redemption would go away so that we could then,
Yeah, I don't know what
Deed.
happens.
The right of redemption doesn't bother me because it's only 6 months and
Right.
there's no identifiable owners.
well, I understand, but before we could transfer it to the other folks, theoretically, we would have to wait the 6 months, wouldn't we?
Probably,
Yeah.
but
I'm just saying,
that's no big deal.
I mean, the court costs alone are $2,000, so I don't know why, to get rid of the right of redemption, why we wouldn't at least bid in the amount we're gonna have to pay anyway, to get rid of that right of redemption.
We can do that.
Maybe the unknown owners are trying to communicate with us now.
You don't
Yeah.
have, You don't,
from beyond.
you don't have a clear title to it though, do you?
Sorry?
You don't have a clear title?
We will have if we buy it in at the Master Commissioner's sale. That's what the purpose of it is, to clear up the title.
So, not having any discussions with the neighbor, was it Mr. Hahn that spoke with them?
And Mr. Hahn and I spoke to one, and Mr. Wickman spoke to the other.
Okay. So, and you had mentioned that you wouldn't count on them showing up to purchase it?
I think they will. I mean, the gentleman that I talked to was very interested in it. He's the one that's been cutting the grass, so you know he's interested in the property. I really believe that he will show up. If he does, then we don't have a problem. If he doesn't, from what I'm hearing, I'll bid $2,000, because that's what we're gonna have to pay anyway.
But if he shows up, we would not bid?
Shows up and bids $1, I'm not bidding.
Okay.
What can the property be used for?
Nothing.
Almost nothing.
That's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
what can it be used for?
Put a trailer on it. that's
Yeah,
better.
so, I mean, I think the key is to get the guy to show up. When is it? When is the sale?
September the 5th, 10 o'clock. Well, that's all good. Kenton County Courthouse.
No, because all you do is touch your nose. You bought it.
Okay. So it sounds like we'll bid up to $2,000 if he does not show up, or if somebody does not show up.
But why are we doing that? I mean, because, yeah.
'Cause we have to pay $2,000
But the
anyway.
next bid is over 2,000. We get at least the money in.
If it goes up to auction and somebody else wants it, we still have to pay?
If somebody else bids, we don't do anything.
If they bid under $2,000.
Anything.
They bid
Yeah, if
$1.
they bid $1, we still owe
Yeah.
the court costs.
Right.
Yeah,
We're gonna pay $2,000 no matter which way we go.
we're gonna pay $7,300 no matter which way we go.
I'm sorry?
We're gonna pay $7,300 no matter which way we go.
Well, you're gonna, in addition to what you've paid, you're gonna pay another $2,000 to the Master Commissioner.
Yeah.
That's why we're bidding $2,000.
Plus, you're gonna spend all that money keeping the grass mowed.
Yeah.
Unless that guy continues to do it. That's what scares me. I don't have to. No.
Go back and,
We decided last year
Right,
to
to
go ahead and
foreclose.
foreclose on it.
Yeah.
but that's my point. Before we do any kind of city-initiated foreclosure, I want this level of investigation done and this level of understanding from council before we make a decision.
Yeah.
That's what we're supposed to do.
So can I put a little history behind this, because this is how I believe we came to this conclusion. I know when Mr. Wickman began to send out his monthly report, okay, about where the status of all these things were, and then we started getting questions about, well, why does this one have 5 years taxes delinquent? Why does this have so many fines on it? Why haven't we done anything? Why haven't we moved forward? And we sat in this body, and I don't remember the exact date, and kind of came up with the rule of 3. So we said if it had 3 citations or 3 years of outstanding taxes and or fines or taxes that equaled $3,000, then we would move forward with that, and pretty much gave Mr. Wickman's firm carte blanche to go ahead and do that. So I think that's, you know, we probably made a huge mistake when we did that and not going through these analysis like Ms. Fetty just did. It's very good, and I think we probably should have done that, and we didn't do that when we jumped forward. So going forward, so that's just a little history about why, Ms. Sutkamp, that happened, I believe, when we looked at it and was wondering why none of these things were being moved on. Well, we had never given anybody any instructions about how to move forward with those things.
So that was policy, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's
That
not,
we
it's not ordinance,
readjusted?
it's not
So,
ordinance, right. We can
I mean,
address
maybe we
that
should
anytime.
readdress that policy, just so that we take away that rubric, and then we do actually analyze each one, that we don't just say, if it hits this limit, then we automatically move forward. Let's not automatically move forward anymore.
Yeah,
Because of the
and you can
repercussions.
still keep the 333, but have
Do
the next
this.
step. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, 333, and it opens it up to this
Correct.
level of detail.
Put up with that.
Yeah.
But in that regard, I want to reiterate and repeat what I've said many times before. This is a code enforcement program. You are not going to foreclose on properties and make money on it.
no, and I
It's
don't
going to
intend-
cost you, no matter what you do.
And I don't
The
intend to
question
make
is,
money.
what you all have to decide, is it worth the cost to do anything?
Correct,
You can just leave those properties sit there,
correct.
but the previous council decided that wasn't a good idea. Now it's up to this council to decide whether it is a good idea or not. And I like your idea of an individual evaluation of each parcel, and we could certainly do that. You know, before we go ahead, and we did that in that March 2016 meeting. That's why we had that discussion, because we identified this property with these problems. And the consensus was, although I doubt if it was in a formal motion or anything, but the consensus was to move forward to get rid of a problem piece of property. But we can certainly identify those properties one by one before we do anything with them, and let you all decide what you want to do on a per lot basis rather than a general direction.
Okay. All right, so do you feel like you have clear direction?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we do have one other additional item to discuss this evening. Mr. Fields would like to talk about the Crescent Springs policing contract.
So, and Chief Wilson, if you'd like to. So we attended the Crescent Springs City Council meeting last night, and one of the items on the agenda was a municipal order approving the mayor to execute a document to send us termination notice of the policing contract. When it got to that time, after we sat till their meeting started at 7, it was after 9 o'clock when they got to this piece to discuss it, and they decided to table it. So it was tabled by a 4-2 vote. So we sat for a little longer, and then we decided that we would leave. And this morning, I got a phone call from one of their city council people that told me that there was some discussion that came up after we left. That didn't surprise us. And the discussion that came up after that was they decided and took a vote, because they were in a council meeting, that they were going to put police services out for a RFP. They were going to do a request for proposals and send that out. I kind of relayed this morning to the council person after talking to Chief Wilson, Lieutenant Rader, and we'd been talking about this a long time. We gave them the September 1st deadline for a reason. The personnel issues within the police department and the staffing levels with the retirements coming up and things like that, they just can't be held hostage for a RFP. You know, they're going to staff up and then staff up for business that they may not have. Now the city of Erlanger is stuck with those employees. It's not a win-win for anyone. I think after discussing this a little bit with the mayor through email today, and that is, you know, it's our recommendation to council is that we have a municipal order ready for our next council meeting that gives the mayor the authority to send Crescent Springs notice of terminating the policing contract in the time frame. And we believe, and I hope that comes from Mr. Gallen when he looks at it, and Mr. Wickman if he looks at it, to see if in fact what that time frame has to be, whether we have to give them 12 months or if it's down to maybe 10 months since it actually ends, the current contract ends June 30th, or if it's something other than that, so that we can do it. There's no way that we can even put a proposal in not knowing whether or not you're going to get that business. How are you going to staff for it? What are you going to do? It would be putting the police department in the city in just a really bad situation to continue that, even though I know it hurts us all to say that. Well, we've been negotiating since January. I believe it was the first meetings that we had with the city of Crescent Springs. We thought that we had a deal at one point in time. They decided that a bid came out of nowhere and they were going to reconsider what we had done. We even went back to them with another offer that was more advantageous to them, and they have turned that one down. And now they want to go out and get proposals for policing services. It's a no-win situation for the city of Erlanger.
They're lost.
Chief, I don't know if you want to add anything, please. Feel free. I know.
How many council people are there? 6, and what is it, 4 to 2?
It was 4 to 2 at table, but, you know, like Mark said, we've been going through this since January.
Right.
And I the extension, and their actions are indirectly getting an extension, but it's all to get to the desired outcome, which is to.
Right. No, yeah.
It was way before the yeah.
5 officers retired. Right, no, that,
I can look back and see.
have to look out for
I don't,
that.
I guess I don't need the exact date.
The items that we added into the contract were a termination clause where they would have to pay us $100,000 for each year that they terminated early, prior to 5 years. They didn't like that. Well, that was the protection that we needed.
Sure.
Right,
Long-term deal, then.
Well, no, you can't pay your people.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely, right. Yeah. Right, and just so everybody knows, you said something about the vote being 4 to 2. They told me today that after they had a vote to go out to RFP, that was a unanimous vote to go out to RFP.
Yeah. You know, but I attended a meeting, it was at least 2 months ago, when we talked about this, and even then they were saying that if they were going to decide to go to an RFP, they should have done that back in February.
Right.
Exactly.
Which, you know, we all agree with. And,
I think they're gonna regret their decision.
yeah, I mean, over a month ago, we made it pretty clear cut in the revised contract and a cover letter that went along with it, that we gave them till September 1st. That was kind of our drop dead date, and that's,
Do we got enough people to cover for the next 9 months? Don't we got 9 more months, right?
Yes, we have, the next several retirements are towards the middle of next year, which
So we're good to,
before that, but
enough to handle it? That's all we can do.
yeah.
So even while we were together today, we even looked to see if in fact we drop below that lower staffing level, what it would take for overtime to do it, and the monthly charge that they're being charged right now, well, more than covers that would take, even if we had to put 3 overtime shifts a day in. Yeah.
Okay, so, yeah, the next meeting will be the 5th, so we'll know for sure then. And, yeah, we would look for the approval to be able to set a deadline and cancel the whole thing. Thank you. Thank you. All right, if there's no other discussion, then I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mrs. Skidmore, second by Mrs. Kyle. All in favor say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Hey, Dave.
Mark, can I turn this off, that girl?
Yeah.